Welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. And this is an amazing day. Do you want to know what it is? It's just you and me. That doesn't happen very often anymore because my calendar is booked out with people who want to be on this show for at least 2 months and sometimes 3, but right now it's at 2 months. And I was thinking just the other day, and I actually said to John, I don't think I've talked to a long time where it's just been me sharing my thoughts and my feelings, and I feel a little out of touch with my listeners. And he said, well, can't you just go ahead and schedule one in and then move everybody back because they don't know when their show's going to pop up? And I said, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that. But did I? I didn't, because it's a little bit more work to write your own show. Well, so this morning I got up. This is my podcast day. I always record every Monday morning. And I got up this morning. I don't always open my email every morning first thing. And I certainly don't look at it at the last thing at night. So about an hour ago, I opened my email and there was a message that said my guest for today has rescheduled her podcast, and she's now going to be in 2 months. And at first I was like, oh, okay. And then, wait a minute. Who's going to give the podcast today? So I'm scrolling through my head, all my friends that I could call at any time and they would do a podcast with me. And then it dawned on me, is not this what I've been putting out to the universe and to myself? That I've been wanting a time to spend with you. Well, of course it's what I've been wanting. And the first thing, when it was given to me, I was like, oh my gosh, how can I give this away? I always say it's kind of like the gift of free agency and free choice. I feel like this is a big, important, eternal principle, and that we have the gift of choice. But it seems like the moment we got on this planet, first thing we wanted to do was give it away. I know I had the choice, but it really wasn't my fault. It wasn't my responsibility. It was actually Eve. She told me to do it. And what's Eve say? Same thing. She doesn't step into accountability and responsibility and joy in the choice. She steps into, that serpent. He's the guy. So I went through about 5 seconds of that this morning. And then I welcomed in my gift. And I said, thank you for this gift. This is creating an opportunity for me to do what I talk to you about a lot, which is step in. An opportunity to step in to what's in front of you. And that it's not a struggle. It's not your trial. Oh my gosh, I have to write a podcast in an hour. It's not that. This morning, I got to get quickly dressed and then step in to being with you and to writing a podcast and to sharing with you all the things. There are all things all the times racing through my brain, and I'm experiencing my heart that are being given to me from source, that I'm learning from my world and from people. And I haven't been sharing them with you, but now I have an opportunity today to step in. One of my favorite quotes is, I never fail. I either succeed or I'm learning. So today I'm either going to succeed at my quickly written podcast, or I'm going to learn that I always need to have one ready. And we'll see which one it is. I do my meditations and every morning, and throughout the day, I really kind of stay present in my spiritual self. And whenever something drives by me in life, I ask, what was there to learn through that? And I ask always, in every meditation, I spend time in gratitude. There's something that happens to our psyche when we get to spend it in gratitude. And we get to step into life with every step of, I am so grateful for this. I'm either grateful for the success or grateful for the learning opportunity. Because that's why I'm still in the version of becoming my best self, because I'm asking for that every single day of my life. I'm experiencing gratitude for myself, gratitude for John, gratitude for my family. And this gratitude for John has made such a difference in our relationship. And I was pondering this morning if I could share with you something. This is what I thought it would be. What are the specific things that has made this relationship with John this time around be completely different than anything I'd experienced before? And if I can learn that, I can make sure that I can repeat it every single day. And if I can learn it and write it down, then I can share it with you. I've been married twice before. And obviously, I didn't learn those lessons to be able to make that situation work. But I did glean the lessons and I moved on. So the first piece of understanding the relationship that I have now with John and being able to repeat it every single day is I have to look back. Those lessons from the past that are waiting to teach me. They didn't happen to push me down. They didn't happen to keep me stuck. They didn't happen so that I would feel worthless, unlovable. But I could go back and look at those lessons and those relationships and those marriages and learn from them. That's the first thing I had to do to make this new relationship not just repeat the lessons of the past. So the very actual second gift that I want to talk to you about that has made this relationship so completely different. And if you want to transform your partner relationship, if you want to transform the relationship with your children, with your siblings, with your coworkers, with any relationship you have, if you're ready to transform it, the most important gift that you're going to give yourself and to others is the gift of vulnerability. You might say, well, what does that have to do with a relationship? It has everything. Because as I looked past at those old relationships, whether they were marriages, whether they were with siblings, no matter what they were with, and you hear me say this so many times, it's probably the greatest quote that I've ever said myself, and that is this, and you've heard me say it so many times. The healing starts when the hiding stops. How could I begin to heal myself enough to step into another relationship if I wasn't ready to stop the hiding? Because it's that hiding that destroys relationships. It destroys relationships with yourself. It destroys relationships with your spouse. But when I'm ready to stop hiding, to step into being vulnerable and showing my most naked self, then I get to heal. And as that healing inside me starts, you invite others in. This is a gift I gave John early on because I knew that I wanted this. I wanted a relationship where I could stand completely naked, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, and know that he would love me. And the way that had to happen is I had to stand naked in front of myself. I hope that you can see the connection between this. When I begin to feel I can be naked in front of me and absolutely love me, I can give that gift to John. See me? I'm naked. Now you're putting yourself out there, there's no question. And you're putting yourself out there, there's no question, with maybe a little fear, but you move through it. And when he absolutely wraps his arms around me At every point in time, no matter what I'm feeling, this feeling of safety, this feeling of trust begins to grow and grow and grow. I gave this gift to John, but he didn't immediately give it to me because that had not been his pattern. That had not been where he had found safety. Safety for John was in hiding because that's where safety was. So if you're doing this immediately and expecting back from someone, oh, me too, I'm ready to be naked too. You're probably setting yourself up for failure. I'm just saying. Okay. But as you begin to give that freely and unconditionally, the time happens where he begins to give it back. And that person feels that because they trusted you, that you can trust them. One of the key elements as you're going into a relationship where you're going to give 100% vulnerability, it's nice to find out fairly close to the beginning, and if not, late in the game, but to have the same desire. To just come right out and ask your spouse, this is what I desire. I heard Mary talk about the gift of vulnerability, and it's what I want to give to you. I know it's the greatest thing I can give to you, to never hide. And you know that I'm offering a safe place for you. When you know you can trust me, I will tell you, they will respond. It may not be as quickly as John did, but they will respond. And it's the most beautiful place in the world. I definitely didn't have that in my first relationship. I hid every single piece from that guy. And he hid from me, and we never set it down. We never set the hiding down. We could not possibly move past where we were, holding on to our hiding. My second relationship, I had begun to set that down and begun to set down my vulnerability and hiding, wanting vulnerability and setting down my hiding. But he didn't want anything to do with it. He was too afraid. Now, I don't think it's not that I am not afraid. I'm sometimes very afraid. It's not that John wasn't afraid, but in providing this safe space for each other, there's nothing like being enveloped and wrapped in the arms of safety. I'm going to tell you a story to kind of illustrate this. Just this week, it happened. So we love the Jazz. We absolutely love the Jazz. And that's the basketball team here in Utah, our pro team. And we have season tickets. And so far, it's been my love for the Jazz. And so I've been paying for these season tickets. Well, they sent an email and we shared them with another couple. And they sent an email that said, ticket prices are going up this year, of course, and it's now going to be this much. And one of the other partners said, it's too much for me. I'm going to back out. And I thought, wow, that's probably too much for me too. I'm going to back out. And as I was sharing this with John, he could see that I was a little sad not to be going to the Jazz game. And he just stepped forward and he said, well, maybe this year I could pay half and I could take it out of my Merrill Lynch account and we could still get to go. First of all, I was so touched that he was wanting to give this to me. But it wasn't what I needed. I needed just to him to say, I really want to go. And I was then able to say, if this is something we both enjoy, then for sure we're going to do it. And I let the guy know, paid our commitment, done. It wasn't until later that evening when we were laying in bed, as we always do at the end of the night, wrapped in each other's arms. And he said, you know, when you said you really wanted to go, but you didn't have enough money, I began to have that old feeling of that I'm not enough. Because if I was enough, I'd be able to step up and pay for all of it. But rather than stuffing that fear back inside like I've always done, I'm sharing with you how I feel about it. And suddenly, we couldn't hold each other tight enough. There was this willingness for him to open up and stand naked in front of me and acknowledge a time when he didn't feel enough. Because he knows I do it all the time. And he knew that I was providing him a safe place. That's the important lesson here. It's not about the jazz tickets. It's not about the money. The important lesson here is about being able to stand naked in front of your partner and know that they will love you, and to share your feelings outward rather than to stuff them in. How many of us for so long have been stuffing in those feelings? Why do you think we go through so many Tums in this country, or Prilosec, or any other acid-reducing things? Because we're stuffing things down there in that gut. Have you not heard 20,000 times about your microbiome being sick? If no wonder it's sick when we're stuffing all those negative feelings all day long, year after year. So the greatest gift that I have given John and that John has given me is the gift of vulnerability. And that has made the biggest difference in this relationship. This week, I'm doing a podcast shortly on the art of storytelling. And this woman sent me 3 links to stories that were given at the end of a college class on storytelling. And it would give me an example of the kind of things that she had been teaching and learned. So I went on these links and listened to these college students tell their end of semester story. I was blown away. Imagine in college standing up in your class and telling a story about your life in front of your siblings. I thought, oh, okay, it's going to be a story about their dad, or it's going to be a story about something else. But it was a very personal story. Each one of the 3 stories, a very personal story about their own lives. One of them talked about her fear of public speaking. And here she was, standing in front of people, sharing that out loud, her fear. The next person talked about her struggle with suicide ideation and how that had been a part of her life. And she had felt so isolated from friends that no one wanted to be her friend. And now she was at college and she was learning how to be vulnerable in front of people. And now she was finding that she had more friends simply because she'd been able to stand naked. Now, as much as I liked those 2 stories, they were stories from the past. And it's way easier to talk about stories from the past than it is to be vulnerable with things that you're dealing with right now. And the third woman that spoke talked about her struggle with eating and how at age 9, in the middle of the night, she would sneak downstairs to the pantry. She would eat 4 sleeves of Oreos until she was about ready to throw up, then get the bag of chocolate chips down. And after she'd consumed half of them, she went back up to her room and tried to throw up, but she couldn't ever throw it up. And then her weight just started to get larger and larger. And she knew her mother, she had to hide it from her mom because she knew her mom would be so upset with her. So you're thinking that she's going to tell about how this resolved itself. And about how she was isolated in high school, sat off by herself because she didn't like people to see her eating. And now she's at college, and she's still dealing with it. And she stood in front of that class and told them the things she's doing to want so much to overcome this. And it was something she was dealing with right now. I can tell you this, they don't show you the end after they quit speaking in front of those students, but I absolutely know what happened. Because she stood there naked and vulnerable, she was surrounded by the people in that class. They embraced her. They hugged her. They became her support system. That's the gift of vulnerability, is that suddenly, instead of hiding and being alone, you open the door of the closet and allow people in until you're strong enough to step out. We step through fear, not around it, not over it. But when you actually can pass through the fear, can you imagine one of her greatest fears was people finding out about her eating disorder? And for her then to become naked? That's what you call stepping through fear. She became emotionally naked, and it's going to create a whole new freedom in her life. And when you learn to do this in your life, you will be freed like you've never felt before. It's a challenge I offer to you. It's something I check myself on every single day. The third and last thing that has allowed John and I to create this life, this relationship, this gift to each other, this gift to everyone who comes in contact with us. People, we have found love just to be around us because they're like, wow, I love how I feel when I'm with the two of you. This is one of the biggest keys, and there are only 3 of them now. Learn from your past, learn the gift of vulnerability, and now this one. Understand your purpose of life. I think we have probably heard that over and over. Find your purpose. Find your purpose. It's like hidden out in the yard somewhere, and you're just going to go out there and find it. Or maybe you're going to be deep in meditation and you're just going to try and find out, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? You might do this for how you do it. You might be really focusing on the why you're doing it, but the what is your purpose of life is already known. It's the same for all of us. It's what we've given to us. The purpose of our lives here, of my life and your life, is to become the best version of ourselves. John and I started reading a book, The 7 Levels of Intimacy, early on in our relationship. And each paragraph, we would stop, we would talk, we would kind of come to understand how it was playing out in each of our lives. Very few things affected our relationship more than reading that book together and coming to understand that my goal in life, my purpose in this life, is to be the very best version of me. And then to help John be the very best version of himself. And then to reach out beyond that and to help everyone we come in contact with be the best version of themselves. But the first step is for you to begin to focus on being the very best version of yourself. And as John began to realize that as well, he stepped in. And every day now I see him focusing on being the very best version of himself. In so many ways, I admire him so much. I want you to think of 2 buckets. Relationship. 2 buckets. They're both identical. But as you look inside the buckets, in the bottom of each bucket, there's a rusted away hole. Now, we weren't born with that rusted away hole. We got it while we were here. But don't worry, it was the plan. Okay? We're supposed to get a rusted bucket hole in the bottom of our buckets. And so if you're in a relationship where I expect John to fill my bucket and he's just dumping away into my bucket, it's constantly running out of the bottom. And as hard as he works at that, he is never, ever going to be able to fill my bucket because I haven't worked on mending and healing my own rusted hole. And if vice versa, if in his rusted bucket, if I'm just dumping love and dumping stuff and really trying to fill up his bucket, I could work on that my whole life, but it's never going to be filled because there's a rusted hole in the bottom. But when he focuses on healing and mending his wounded bucket, and when it's all smoothed over, and there may still be a few leaks in it, but if I'm pouring in love, I can keep it full. And so the purpose of life is to become the best version of ourselves. Then we can fully give to others. But there's no way that we can become whole ourselves if we don't start here. You've heard about this so many times. Self-care, self-love. But this is why it's important. So you can mend and heal your bucket. And then when you're filled, you can outflow to others. Love often goes awry when we want each other to fill our buckets. Yeah. But go deeper than that. Go deeper. Go deeper and fill your own bucket. Heal your own bucket. Mend the rusted hole. Once you've begun this process and you feel the difference of what it's like to be living with a healed hole in your bucket, we can look up and you want to help others to receive our love. So when you're in the middle of serving others, when you're first kind of new to this concept of healing yourself first, because people have been naming this a lot as narcissist. It's completely different. With narcissists, they don't want to fix their bucket. They're focused on the hole in yours. The person who is focused on their own hole is far, far, far from a narcissist. And so it's all about the motivation. What is your motivation to serve? Is your motivation to make up for your hole in your bucket? Or is your motivation for serving to fill theirs? It's kind of this ebb and flow of giving and receiving. I did an exercise once. We were closed eyes. We did a sound bath. We were laying on the floor. And the person said, picture your right hand giving. Because we give with our right hand. And I could see myself just giving and giving away to people and just loving that part of my life. And then they said, now outstretch your left hand to receive in return. I literally could not get my left hand to move out. In fact, I drew it back. And when I realized that my bucket was not healed on the bottom, and I had been all my life just giving out, giving out, giving out. No wonder I felt depleted. No wonder I felt like the weight of the world was on my back. No wonder I felt no support. How could they ever begin to fill up this bucket if I hadn't worked on that rusty, ugly hole in the bottom? And when I finally began to heal that hole, I could feel my left side reach out to receive from others. And you have this beautiful ebb and flow of giving and receiving as we mend our minds and our hearts. This is the journey of crafting a meaningful life. You want to know what it is? That's it. Completely one and done. Learn from your life lessons. They're your gifts. 2, learn the gift of vulnerability to heal thyself. 3, be the very best version of you. And as your bucket overflows, you give to others. The gift of this is peace, contentment, nakedness, fearlessness, overflowing with love for yourself, for your partner, for my John, for my family, and then for my community of mankind. Namaste.
Crafting a meaningful life.